Right now on Tech Radio, does Google's Pixel 9 Pro XL excel?
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the very latest in tech from Ireland and around the world. You're very welcome to episode 1032. Looking back on the 7 biggest stories of the week, including more AI and our view of the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL smartphone. Does it live up to the hype? We're seconds away from finding out.
From TechCentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always is our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. You've had in your lova the Pixel 9 Pro XL, the biggest one that they have. I'm going to ask you straight out of the bat. Marks out of 10. Go.
I'm going to give it I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8. On principle that I never give things a 10 because there's always room for improvement. And a 9 would be sort of this has changed my life. And this hasn't, because we're past that with smartphones, I think. Am I impressed with it? Yes, I most certainly am. My previous handset, last year I had a look at the Pixel 8 Pro, precursor to this, and it's only been 10 months since that was released. I was kind of, we had a flagship phone, and now we've got an even better flagship phone, but it's not a, Pixel 8 Pro XL, it's a Pixel 9. We've skipped that, we've got a new range of pixels. So does it justify that leap in technology, and why? I think to a certain extent it does. If you look at what they're doing with the battery, what they're looking at with RAM, what they're looking at, particularly with the chipset, I think, yeah, sure, fine. I think the old reliables of screen size, weight, and battery, sure, they come into play as well. One good reason from a Google perspective why they're interested in getting such a spec bump out there as quickly as possible is, of course, to do with AI and getting Gemini to run well. And I get that. And of course, we have Gemini Live, which is their subscription system, their subscription version, which if you're buying a 9 is going to come a year free. And then I think it's quite pricey thereafter. I think it's like €22 a month or something like that. So with all that in mind, should you go out and buy one if either A, you have a Galaxy S24 or an iPhone 15 Pro Max, or if you just happen to have a Pixel 8 Pro? Should you go out and buy this?
I'm going to ask you this question right now because you are a long-time iPhone user and you flipped over to Google Pixel and their system last year. Was it a good experience for you?
It was, and still is, a little bit of a learning curve, because things that are very simple on iOS are just different on Android. You've played with iPhones and you're an Android guy. How would you compare them?
I would say I have exactly the same thing, that if somebody says, I can't make this work on my iPhone, I'll have a look at it, and then I'm just immediately want to throw the thing in the bin, for the simple reason that it just does things differently. Because when you're working with a smartphone with this is why I asked you, when you're working with a particular kind of OS, Google has their own, Samsung has their own, iPhone has their own, and they all do things in a certain way, and you get this like almost motor memory kind of a stuff. You just do stuff automatically until you go on to a different system, and it's like, So I know that you went through pain going from iPhone into the Google Pixel OS, but after having had it for a number of months, did you find you were getting used to it, or are you still kind of pining for the old days?
There's a bit of me like there's been what 10 years of training there. You can't wipe that out in an instant. It's little bits to me like
Anyway.
it says I've got email. It doesn't say how many emails. What am I meant to do with that?
So listen, you have the phone there. So because we
Yeah.
are experimenting with video clips on YouTube. So if you have a look at our YouTube channel, our one clip this week is going to be this discussion about the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. And on the video right now, Niall is going to hold it up and show it to us and tell us what you think. How big is it compared to your hand? Because this is the biggest one of all that they have. I mean, it is the XL. Okay, there you go. Boom. That looks like a normal size phone to me, even though it's the XL.
Yeah. And, the interesting thing is, like, I have it on standby there, but as soon as I pick it up, it switches on. So I think it's, little fine details like that will sort of bring people in. But there's a couple of things if you are a Pro 8 user that will stand out to you straight away. One is the position of the fingerprint reader, which is a marked improvement on the last one. This time out, Google has gone with a Qualcomm chip, their 3D Sonic Gen 2 ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, and it's actually very quick. It's quick and it's I'm not going to say more accurate because I never had any problems with the previous generation, but it's certainly faster. And it's gotten a good reaction because of that. On the very basics, it is slightly bigger compared to last year's model. It's 6.8 inches, and they've done a bit better in that they've eaten into the bezel, so it's not they haven't made it bigger just to satisfy a bigger screen. They've taken pretty much the same dimensions and done more with them. It is, however, a little bit heavier, and that's noticeable. I mean, it's 221 grams versus 213. So, you hold them together and you're like, oh, okay, there's a bit of heft to the new one.
Can you notice that? Because you look at that in the stats, and you kind of go 10 grams. Come on, what's 10 grams? Like, but you do notice that when you're holding the new phone.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like when you're playing, balance between the two. Yeah, you do notice it. Display
now when we're out How about now when we are out and about and it's August and it's a little bit brighter? Is the display any brighter?
Yeah, the display is much, much brighter. Of course, you can fuck around with it to your heart's content, but the new model is 2,000 to 3,000 nits of brightness versus 1,600 to 2,400 nits on the Pro 8. So, that's, again, it's a noticeable difference. So if you're gaming, if you're watching videos, that sort of thing, you will have a slightly nicer experience. The battery, they will always say 500 charges and you're good to go. Thereafter, I think you'll get something like 80% of the charge. Who's to say? Based on what your usage is, I think your mileage may vary. A couple of things on the sustainability front. iFixit have replacement parts. Google, of course, they've said the unit itself, the handset itself, is made of 18% recycled materials. We're sending this out with a view to it being fixed as opposed to replace. And by all means, if you want to get an official screen replacement, we can do that for you as well. So, we're happy out with working with third parties. On the software front, 7 refreshes is what they guarantee. Or rather 7 years of updates. I mean, we're getting this across the board. And the only reason we're getting it across the board is because the EU. So, let's not clap them on the back for that. This is something they have to do. Same with going for USB-C, for example. They have to do it.
That is a very good thing, because the way that it was going was that you had to replace your phone every 2 years because they were not supporting the older phones with the new software. So it's good.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's no way I'm going to wait 7 years before I'm changing my phone just because they're supporting it for 7 years. I'll probably change my phone it's probably every 3 years now. I used to do it every 2 years, but probably every 3 years now. So.
Yeah, and I think most people that would be their cadence, all right. So I don't think that many people would be like, yes, 7 years. But, the option's there. I mean, the last phone I had before this, I'd had for nearly 10. So it does happen. It does happen out there in the world.
What do you like?
Yeah.
What about the RAM?
RAM, yeah. You're a fan of RAM. We were talking about it last week, actually, and you were saying you wouldn't get a laptop with less than, 32?
16. 16 gigs, yeah.
Well, guess what? You will now be able to get a phone that has 16 gigs of RAM. Isn't that amazing?
Good.
As opposed to 12.
But that's what I'm asking you. The one you have has got 16 gigs. So do you find that it runs really snappy and fast?
It does. But as with all things RAM, it comes down to how much you're running at the same time. I mean, you can have one app going and it's fine. You could have two and it's running fine. It's when you get into 5, 6 apps, whatever, or if you're using gaming and watching video at the same time, or trying to, that's when the demand comes in. And I think in the Pixel 9 Pro XL, what you're getting is it's when you get into capturing 4K and 8K video, when you're looking into that sort of dynamic scanning that it does, then you're getting into the interesting stuff. Then you're getting into this is why we need extra RAM. Potentially, we might be either playing or mucking around with video to this standard. So yeah, fine. If you're going to do 8K video capture, you're going to need more RAM just to keep up with it. And that makes sense.
Yeah, but also if you're doing 8K video and editing it on a phone, it also says something about
well,
about you.
It does that too. It does that too.
Anyway, listen, what have you got to say then to wrap up then with the Pixel Pro?
Yeah, well, last point to raise on it, and this is important as well. Hitting the stores at €1,199 compared to 578 for the previous one. So you're hitting the big time, Google Pixel. Is it worth it? Do you know what? If you want that plain vanilla, no mucking around version of Android, I think this is a pretty good phone for you. I think it's a good, solid handset. I think in some ways it might underperform a little bit compared to the two, compared to Apple and Samsung. But I think in a lot of ways they're much of a muchness between them. I think it will come down to a couple of years' time when those updates, those Gemini updates are really rolling out. Will people still be saying, do you know what? My Pixel used to run really well. And then this update came out and it's a load of nonsense. That's the danger.
Excellent. Well, listen, a solid 8 out of 10 from Niall because he never gives a 10 out of 10. And a 9 out of 9 would be just too good. So actually, a top score, I would say. Well done to the phone. Of course, needless to say, there's going to be an absolute full and detailed report on techcentral.ie. And if there isn't, Niall's going to write it this afternoon so that it's there in time for when we put the podcast out. Am I right? I knew it. The laugh says everything. I've been interested actually to Google because they normally bring out their new phones at the Made by Google event in October. They moved it up to August this year because they're trying to get ahead of the iPhone. And the iPhone 16 is coming next. And just a couple of rumors that I've been hearing to share with you sometime in September. And do you know what? I don't think there's an awful lot really to say or anything. There's no particular super hot rumor this year. I think the new iPhones are going to be slightly bigger, slightly better, slightly faster, slightly harder. They're talking about a new camera button. Now, this I don't understand, right? They're talking about a new camera button where you half press it and it'll do autofocus and then you full press it to take a picture. I thought that was a given on all phones at this stage. It's not going to ship with Apple Intelligence initially. We're going to have to wait until October when iOS 18.1 is out. But the one thing that we're hoping for, and I kind of am looking forward to, and then I also don't care. It'll be a one last thing where they announce the new Mac Mini. And the word is that they're going to completely revamp the shape and size of the Mac Mini, which they've had for, oh my God, how long am I buying these things? 2010, 2012. They've been the same size.
You love your Mac Mini
ever since.
You love it.
Yes, I've loved it all the way through to the most recent one with the M2 processor, which they completely. Sorry, there's an F word there that I really want to say, and I can't. And the reason that it is, they brought in this new thing. It's called Apple File Provider, okay? Because you've got this whole thing where a lot of people are holding files on the cloud. And a lot of people have files on the cloud that are probably more than what the Apple Mac Mini or your laptop or whatever can hold. Because now we're looking at devices that have got 250 gigs of storage on them, whereas you might have 500 gigs or a terabyte on the cloud. So this Apple File Provider is a system where, okay, cool, have all your stuff on the cloud and we will just use it and download it as you go along. The two problems I've found with it is that, number one, it fills up my hard drive. So there is no space available for anything. So if I'm bouncing down a video or something like that, it'll kind of go, whoa, you don't have enough space. And I'm like, are you kidding? So that's number one. And then the other thing which really annoys me is that when I open up a project, because I'm opening up audio and video files, it has to download them all. So I'm waiting 5 minutes to open a project. And that's just, I mean, why build the fastest, smartest computer in the world, all right, and then have to wait 5 minutes for a thing to open? It's just bananas. But there's Apple. They do 90% brilliance, and then the last 10% just completely messes the entire thing up. That's my experience with Apple. But they are introducing a new Mac Mini this year, and they reckon they're going to change the form, and they're going to make it shrink it down even smaller. And when you look into the Mac Minis these days, I mean, there's hardly anything in there. You know, it's just, it's the circuit board, the power. I think that's it. I mean, there's tons of room to put in like a second hard drive, but you can't, of course. Yeah. All this stuff. That's why I like PC, because with a PC, you can. Yes, you can. A PC is like Obama. Anyways, there we go. Listen, that's it. That's the Google summarized for you, and some rumors about iPhone, which we're hoping to come out at some stage in September. So moving away from phones to a couple of crazy little stories from the States. Niall, you've got a good one kicking off with the election there. And Joe Biden, there was somebody had created an AI Joe Biden voice who was automatically calling people going, hey guys, it's Joe Biden here. Don't bother voting. It's all a scam, or words to that effect. What's happened since?
Yeah. Spare a thought for a company called Lingo Telecom, which is based in Texas, who have been told to pay out a $1 million civil penalty by the Federal Communications Commission. And this was to do with, we reported on this story, I think, a couple of months ago. Basically, a deep-faked Joe Biden was ringing up people in New Hampshire, where there is a primary running on his candidacy, and telling people not to vote. Effectively, it was voter suppression, which last time I checked, I think it's a felony in the States. Could be wrong. I think it is. So the story has been traced back to Lingo Telecom, but also to this chap called Steve Kramer, who's a political consultant. He was working for a candidate that was also in the primary. So instead of, campaigning like you normally would, he put together this deep fake and made the calls. I think there's about 4,000 calls saying, yeah, don't vote. Imagining, the vast majority of them will be Biden supporters. So unfortunately, it was kind of on Lingo to make sure that these calls were being made sort of by actual people and in good faith. Neither happened. So the FCC, well, do you know what? We really should be charging you. We really should be fining you over this. Lingo did this deal with a company called Life Corporation, which is, call it anything, but it was this Democratic operative. Um,
Yeah.
and who himself looks like he's going to be on the hook for $6 million on top of any other criminal charges that he faces for voter suppression and, of course, impersonation of a candidate. Kramer's argument is that, well, do you know what? It was a proof of concept. I showed what could be done. We could do convincing fakes. I was like, really? Is that what you think you accomplished? Looking like you're going to get yourself a very nice rap sheet and a fine of $6 million. That's a pretty good proof of concept. Good return on investment, I would say. So, the cynics amongst us have said, you know what? It's a court in Texas. They will appeal the ruling and it'll get thrown out because Texas. I think that's a little bit harsh. But
we'll wait and see.
Who knows?
We'll wait and see. Another crazy story you've uncovered from the States. A guy wasn't too happy with his record that was on government databases, so he came up with a really good way of sorting that out. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out for him because he's now serving 81 months in jail.
81 months in jail.
I can't even add up 81 months. It must be what? 5 years minimum? Anyways, whatever. Tell us what he did in order to try and clear his record that ended him up in jail for such a long time.
Okay, right. Well, spare a thought for one Jesse Kiff, 39-year-old in the States, who in January of last year decided, do you know what, this whole paying child support thing really isn't working for me. So he decided to fake his own death. And he did this by using the credentials of a doctor to access Hawaii's death registry system and create an entry saying that he had died. Right? So that was it. As he basically used somebody else's credentials, certified them himself through the use of a digital signature of that doctor. Right.
Cool.
So technically the paperwork was all there. The database was used appropriately. It just so happened that credentials were used fraudulently. So he is out in the world enjoying the fact that, he's dead and not lumped with the kind of responsibility that comes with paying child support. However, he was caught. He was caught up to, and in the spirit of all great comeuppances, he was in part convicted on the basis of his browser history, which had some doozies, as remove California child support for deceased. It's a bit damning, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Lesson one, if you're doing something dodgy, just be careful where you do your Google searches, that you wipe your history. Maybe don't use Google, use another search engine. Yeah. I mean, this is what they have. What's the name of the browser? DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo.
There's all kinds of different, super privacy, blah, blah, blah. Use them and do your searches there where they're not tracked and stuff like that. First thing, what's the first thing the Gardaí do when they come in and somebody's done something a bit weird? They go, Grant, get his laptop there and look at his history.
Well, I tell you, I mean, Kip, he really flew too close to the sun on this. Having discovered that he could do this for himself, he found that he could do it not just in Hawaii, but in other places. And he came across credentials for other business and government corporate networks and sold access to them on the dark web. The gas thing is, when he leaves prison, he will owe nearly $200,000 in overdue child support.
Right.
Not to mention,
like that's gonna happen. But anyway,
not to mention the cost of fixing the systems that he compromised, which he might actually have to pay. So there you go.
What interests me about that story is that, okay, that's fine. You go into the system, you mark yourself, I'm dead. I now no longer exist. Okay?
Mm.
How do you survive on planet Earth as a person who is dead and no longer exists? Can a dead person actively use a credit card? Can a dead person actively have a driver's license? Can a dead person actively maintain their social security? So if something happens to them while they're dead that makes them sicker than being dead, if you know what I mean, how do they go to the hospital? Do you know what I mean? You'd have to create a whole new identity for yourself in order to just live. And maybe that's where he fell down.
That sounds like an episode of The X-Files there, Dusty.
There you go. Listen, last little crazy story for you for this week. I don't know if you were a Celebrity MasterChef person. New
No, but I gather they do all
BBC.
sorts of wacky things with food on it.
Not really, I wouldn't say, but nevertheless. Anyway, one of the things that they use a machine called a sous vide.
Mm-hmm.
And what a sous vide does is it's very fancy restaurant-y kind of stuff, right? They seal food into a vacuum sealed bag like fish or something like that. And then they put the bag into water and the boiling water cooks the food without the food actually ever touching water. So you've got the idea of it, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
So one of the top manufacturers of these sous vide machines, Anova, has an app to control the device. And you kind of think, oh, yeah, that's fine, whatever. So you can kind of time it to start or stop and it'll tell you what temperature it's at and all that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, it's kind of handy and useful and whatever. They have announced that they are going to start charging a subscription to use the app.
Oh.
Now, I have a bugbear with this. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear. I have one of these robo Hoover thingies, right? Which are useless, but nevertheless. What drives me nuts about that robo thing is I have to go onto my phone and use an app to start and stop the thing. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine until you get to the point where the app has logged itself out of the service. And then you have to go and find, well, what's my username and my password to start the Hoover?
Yeah.
Hello. All right. Now we are going into a step even further with this particular sous vide thing where not only have you got this app, but you have to pay €10 a year to use the app. And this is how cynical they are, right? The app at the moment works with Bluetooth. So it'll just connect directly to the cooking machine by Bluetooth. They're taking that out and it'll only connect by Wi-Fi.
Wow.
Mad.
A bunch of jerks.
The world is, beef jerkies.
You're listening to Tech Radio 2024 from techcentral.ie.
Let's get into our last two stories of 7 this week, kind of focusing on AI and ChatGPT. And they've actually done something good, or have they?
Well, I think the magazine publisher Condé Nast has done something quite interesting. Now, if you don't know the name, you certainly know the titles that they publish. So they're responsible for the likes of Vogue, Wired, The New Yorker, very high-end things.
All right.
You know, titles that people are proud to say they read and understand, that kind of thing, right? And of course, we know that one of the great problems with ChatGPT has been its struggles with copyright holders who have been saying, do you know what, your large language model, ChatGPT, clearly knows too much about what we do. And in some respects, you know, has actually spat out entire paragraphs that look suspiciously familiar to our work. So Condé Nast has said, well, do you know what? Okay, we're sitting on all this stuff and it's high quality information that will serve, you know, people. Serve a discerning audience, and why not serve everybody? And we like the idea of meeting audiences where they are. So, you know, if we'll say a search is powered by ChatGPT and the source is the New Yorker, maybe somebody will be more inclined to go out and buy a subscription to the New Yorker. That's the thought behind it. So they're saying, okay, away you go, ChatGPT. Please use our content. It's the kind of arrangement that where one goes, the rest will follow, because I think publishers really don't want to get caught up in this copyright argument, especially when there's money to be made off it. I mean, individual authors like Paul Tremblay and Sarah Silverman not finding a lot of purchase with their own copyright actions. But if publishers are able to go, do you know what? Yeah, deal done. Just credit us, or maybe credit us and give us a small fee. Kind of the same thing as what Google have done and has happened in Australia, although Facebook went that no, we'll just, if it's not free, we're not interested.
Yeah. I think it's the credit. I think it's the credit that's more interesting, because when you do a search, or not a search, but when you do, so I don't know if I can't remember if this is on ChatGPT, but Perplexity is another AI that I use quite a bit. And when they give you a result to a question, there'll be a little dot with a number on it. And when you click that, it will give you the source. So if you are looking up something about Vogue, I don't know. Anyway, some model, whoever. All right, Lady Gaga. And they say, Lady Gaga has done such and such and such in the last whatever month. And then you've got your little dot beside it, and then you click on that and it takes you to Vogue magazine, who gives you the full story. So it's kind of like, it's like Google search, but it's AI delivering you the answer and then saying you can find more details because I got the answer from these websites, which I think is better than saying the answer might be on this website, or this website.
Yeah.
I think. But that's interesting anyway, that things are changing. We've said it many times before. It's like AI at the moment is the early days of the internet, the browsable internet, which we saw in the mid-90s. And it was like the Wild West. And eventually they kind of got the handle on it, and eventually got the credit card payment sorted and stuff like that. AI seems to be going through the same thing with its sources and stuff like that.
Here's a question for you. Right? Back in the Wild West, right? When the West was wild, what did people say it was like then?
I think they called it the Wild West. They said it's exactly like the Wild West. There are no rules on the internet.
No, I think they just look outside and go, it's like today.
It was brilliant, because you knew on the internet, the thing about the internet was you could do what you wanted and everything was free. Now all the rules and regulations have come in, and it's a different world. I'm not saying it's better, I'm not saying it's worse, but kind of back in the day, you could do what you wanted and everything was free. That's what the internet was about. Anyway, last story for you this week. This is more kind of a comment on society and how the world is changing. Nielsen, who do all of the monitoring of TV and who watches what and how many million people saw whatever show, have released a little bit of research, and they've been looking at how people, or what people are watching on their television, on their TV, in the living room. Okay. And they've broken it into two main categories. One is broadcast TV, as we know, with RT, BBC, ITV, all that kind of stuff, whether you're getting it off a satellite dish or whether you're getting it off an antenna or whether you get it off cable, it doesn't matter, all right? Just regular, good old-fashioned live TV, right? And then the other one is streaming. So there's where your Netflix and your Disney Plus and da-da-da and all that kind of comes in. Which do you think has more viewing on a TV in a living room? TV or streaming?
Oh, well, here you go. Do people use their TVs as streaming boxes, or do they use them as TVs? I'm going to say they still use them as TVs.
You would be correct. Marginally. All right. According to Nielsen,
okay,
marginally, 47% of people will watch broadcast TV on their TV. So BBC, ITV, blah, 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 all that. 47%, right? 41% right behind are the streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus.
Wow.
And I think it's only a matter of time before that flips over. And then you will find that, kind of there's more people watching streaming services like Netflix than they are watching live broadcast TV. Just interesting how the world is changing. And the last point that I'll give you for today is 47 plus 41. Okay, that's 89. What about the other 11%, Dusty?
What about the other 11%?
YouTube. On their telly in their living room.
Wow.
That, I think, is the one more thing moment. At the end of our podcast, Thank you, Niall, for keeping us up to date.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
As I say, that's it for our show this week. Do check out some other stories that we have online for you this week, including what have we got now?
Yeah, we got rumours of a new line of AirPods from Apple. The IMF considers a Bitcoin tax. And we have a conversation with Auxilian Chief Operating Officer Patrick Jordan.
I read that. Very interesting. You'll find all of those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and an RT Radio 1 Extra. And do remember, please share our podcast with a friend who's into tech. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, or now also on YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.